Good morning, I'm Aziff Azuddin. You're watching Morning Headlines and it's the 12th of March. Now it's been 5 days since the MH370 vessel has disappeared, and the media has finally somehow turned into skeptics and picked up on the conflicting statements given out by both the IGP and MAS. Now this is exemplified. You can see Malay Mail runs the headline, Straits Puzzled. Now this is in reference to what the military has recently said, that they apparently detected the MH370 vessel heading towards the Straits of Malacca, as opposed to earlier reports suggesting that the radar went off near Kelantan. Now, that is only one side of the argument. We also see the IGP finally clarifying on this too. Now, who are these two people? They are the Iranians who used the stolen passports in order to go to Europe to meet their families. Now, as the headline runs, the mystery deepens. The question is whether or not these two people are linked to terrorist attack. That's what has been suggested by the Interpol when they criticized Malaysia's security, right? But however, the IGP came up and has said that no, these two people are not linked to terrorism, and this is what the Metro has run. Bukan terrorists. Now, these two people, interestingly, the photos are released, you can find it on the internet. Whether or not these people are linked, the possibility is still there based on whatever America wants to try to suggest. Now you also see the New Straits Times also running on the same story. Everyone seems to be picking up on it like hotcakes. There you go, fresh leads by NST. And then we have Utusan, however, taking a more speculative spin on things. They bring up the headline, Sabotage, Rampasan, with a nice big question mark there based on whatever the IGP has said yesterday. Now, he brought a more criminal angle to this whole debacle, right? But interestingly, if you see Utusan's pictures up here, they brought the pictures of these two Iranians saying, dua warga Iran pemilik pasports palsu. And if you see the placement of the article is as to suggesting that, is it linked? Is it linked to terrorism? Maybe yes, maybe that's the picture Utusan wants to try to paint. But however, based on what the IGP says, I think we should trust with the fact that these two guys are not terrorists. In fact, they're just people who want to go back to their families. Now, the start goes away from the Iranian angle and brings up the headline, like a needle in the haystack. Now, there's not much to say on that as far as we already know. However, Berita Harian has turned to resignation. Now, if you look at the headline, Petanda MH370 terhempas meaning crashed. Now, it doesn't mean that Berita Harian somehow has resigned to the idea. I mean, it has been 5 days after all, and we have not yet found debris, we have not yet found any sort of leads to what has happened to the MH370. So I think Berita Harian somehow, in line of newspapers trying to give hope to people out there, Berita Harian takes on the stance that maybe they crashed. Maybe, right? But finally, Sinar Harian brings up a more humanistic angle to the whole issue. Now, they bring up these final statements of Captain Zahari, where he says, okay, Roger, good day. Now, those are the final words Captain Zahari says before he went off communications. If you want to know a bit more, you can read there. Now, finally, I think we have been following this story really, really closely, and yet we're frustrated. We want to know a bit more what's going on out there. Are we being withheld for information? I think that's a question which most people are beginning to ask. Are we being withheld for information, especially with these conflicting statements being given out? Now, however, I think what we should also look at is the Kajang by-elections. Now, just yesterday was the nomination, and we have these two candidates finally announced from the side of Barisan Nasional and PKR, Dr. Wan Aziza going up against Chume Fan. Now, what does this mean for PKR? Because I think PKR has been in the bad news for the past few weeks, and Kajang was a really hotly contested seat with Anwar wanting to come in. There was a Kajang move. What happened to Zaid Ibrahim? He pulled out. Is Kajang still as important now that Wan Aziza has taken over from her husband Anwar Ibrahim? I think that's something which is the lead-in for PKR, and whether or not the future of PKR is still hanging on the Kajang seat. However, talking about PKR, we have to look at what also happened yesterday. Now, Karpal Singh has been fined 4,000 ringgit for his seditious remarks against the royalty, right? And there's also questions on whether or not he will still hold on to his MP seat in the parliament. But Karpal has come out against that and said that, until he has exhausted all means to appeal against that, he is still considered a member of the parliament. Dark days ahead for PKR. What's going to happen to them? I think we'll have to follow the Kajang by-elections to find out a bit more until the polling day on the 23rd this March. Now, in other news, however, something which we should also be focusing about is this. Now if you flip over to Berita Harian and go into the deeper pages, this is page 20 by the way, you see the headline, Dua anak VIP pengikut Syiah ditahan. Now this is in reference to a report carried by the Malaysian Insider and Malaysia Kini a few days ago. Now the Perak religious authorities raided a commemoration and arrested 114 Syiahs who are celebrating the birth of Siti Zainab, the daughter of Imam Ali. Right? I think the question here is that Malaysia has been on a rampant Syiah crackdown ever since for years now. Is becoming increasingly bad, especially if you consider the fact that now Iran's trade with Malaysia is deteriorating. Iranians are somehow refusing to invest in Malaysia. This poses a big question of whether or not Malaysia continue doing all this at risk of bilateral trades with Iran. And it's also a question, because this event was a private one, whether or not religious authorities should have the jurisdiction to actually poke and pry into our personal practices, right? I mean, it poses a big question for ourselves. Now that's all I have for you today for Morning Headlines. I'm Aziff Azuddin for BFM 89.9.